Radio IKIM Inspirasi Infora Islami. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good afternoon to the dear listeners of IKIM FM. Welcome to the second part of this special interview with Professor Dr. Muhammad Nazari Ismail. He is the Director of Hashim Sani Center for Palestine Studies, University of Malaya. Assalamualaikum, Prof.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
And for this second part of this interview, Prof, I would like to start with a joint statement on Israel by France, Germany, Italy, the United Kingdom, and the United States on October 9, 2023. I quote, In recent days, the world has watched in horror as Hamas terrorists massacred families in their homes, slaughtered over 200 young people enjoying a music festival, and kidnapped elderly women, children, and entire families who are now being held as hostages. And I would like to touch a bit on the music festival itself, where right now the recent Supernova Music Festival tragedy resulted in at least 260 casualties, and we could see that videos on social media showed gunmen descending in paragliders and others arriving by road. And the party was held approximately 5.3 kilometers from the wall that separates Gaza from southern Israel. It has become a focal point for propaganda criticizing Hamas actions in targeting civilians. So what are your thoughts on this situation?
Okay, thank you very much. Number one is the hypocrisy of the statement is very obvious, right? The governments of the West are expressing their horror at what's happening. But before this, there were massacres, there were killings of Palestinians by settlers, by the Israeli government, by the Israeli military, of innocent Palestinians, including children and women and children. There are 700 Palestinian children now in Israeli prisons. And what did these children do? Throwing rocks, etc. Right? They are children, and they are being imprisoned. What are the Western governments saying about this? They're keeping completely quiet. Right? So that is a hypocrisy. Now, to answer your question again, we must always remember the basic premise that Israel is actually an illegal state, because when it was formed through criminal acts of massacre of Palestinian, killing Palestinian women, old people, children, right, to make sure that they leave the country. And hundreds of thousands, 750,000, as I said, left the country and not allowed to return back to their homeland. Purposefully not allowed to come back, even though it's their right under international law. Why is it that they do not allow Palestinians to come back? It's because if the Palestinians come back to their homeland, then their project of forming this state of Israel will be a failure. Right? So they want to make sure that these Palestinians are kicked out and then stay outside, and then they will and that's what they did. They announced the state of Israel. So it was illegal in the first place. It was an illegal state, regardless of what the international community say. Even though the United Nations recognized Israel, the reality is that it was an illegal state. Criminal act, and therefore Israel is an illegal state. It does not deserve to be recognized by the international community. And Alhamdulillah, our country subscribed to that view. That's why we do not have any diplomatic relations with Israel, because we have accepted that Israel is an illegal state. That's why even now there is a policy of no normalization with Israel. So if you are an illegal state, you cannot argue that what is being done towards you is illegal, because you are in the first place illegal.
Can justify it?
If you, for example, you can imagine if you have a situation where the Japanese come over here, right? They came in during the World War II, right? Let's assume a situation where they decided not to leave. They want to continue to colonize our country. And then what happened? Let us say that they then call other Japanese, either from Japan, from other parts of the world, to come to Malaysia, right? To stay in this country, and at the same time they kick us out. They kick us all out of our villages. Huh? Imagine that situation where the Japanese come over to Malaysia, kick all the us all out. So some of us become refugees. Some will end up somewhere, for example, in southern Thailand, whatever, right? Which is what the Gaza Strip is now in Palestine. Yeah? Somewhere in southern Thailand, let us say in Patani, for example, right? And then they will continue to call Japanese from all over the world to stay in this country, and then they change the name of the country from Malaysia to some Japanese name. All right, imagine that situation. Now, if if we decide to wage war against them for taking our country, what would we be called? Freedom fighters or terrorists? Of course, we will be called freedom fighters because this is our land and they have no right to come, take our land, confiscate, and kick us out of our land. They have no right to do that. And if we fight against them, whoever is involved in the project to kick us out and to take our land will be guilty, right or not? So all the Japanese, regardless of whether you carry a gun or you don't carry a gun, you come to our land and you participate in this project of kicking the native people out, right, in order to displace them with your own people, you are no longer innocent. You cannot call yourself innocent civilian anymore. Okay, so this is what happened in Palestine and is still happening. For example, those young people who were at that concert, many of them actually were from other countries. They come over there because of they claim to have Jewish blood, and then they are allowed to come and become Israeli resident, and then they serve in the army. Everybody who comes to Israel, a resident of Israel, are obligated to do a military service. Okay, and they are involved in all this killing of Palestinians when they are in the military, right? And then after their service end, then they become reservists. So many of these people, young people, for example, one of them I know, his name is Olin or something, Hertz Olin or something. I was reading about him because his parents were worried because he has disappeared. I found out he was an American. He came with his family to Israel and served in the army, and then his service ended earlier this year in April, and then he is now basically in the military. They call it reserve, military reservist. They call it, meaning he can be called at any time to serve in the military to carry out military operations. So many of these young people are actually military reservists, and they are all involved in the project to make sure that the Palestinians will lose their land. Okay. Now, if you are involved in the project to confiscate lands, to kick out Palestinians, what do you expect Palestinians to do? Do you expect them to consider you as a civilian? You are actually still involved, right, in the project to kick them out, right? To make sure that the Palestinian refugees in Gaza cannot come back, right? If they approach the fence, they will be shot. Hundreds of them were shot last time when they approached the fence. So and they are still being prevented from coming back to their homeland. So the Palestinians for me, the Palestinians are entitled to consider them to be legitimate targets because all these people are all complicit in the crime of ethnic cleansing. They are all complicit, even though they may not be carrying guns during that time, but they are all part of the whole machinery to dispossess the Palestinians of their land, of their homeland. So people have got to look it from this angle in order to understand. Otherwise, if they think that Israel is a legitimate state and these people are ordinary people of a normal country, then you will be confused. This situation is different. This is, as I said, a situation akin to like foreigners coming to our country, kicking us out, right? And then putting in place all kind of mechanism and military or non-military to make sure that we can never come back to our country. So of course we will fight back, and we will consider everybody who's involved in kicking us out to be our enemy.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk a bit about peace negotiation or even possible solution to the conflict, Prof. So one of the prominent option is the two-state solution. So even from other countries such as Russia, through the Russian foreign minister said, creating a Palestinian state that will live side by side with Israel is the most reliable path to solve the conflict. While the U.S. Biden has reaffirmed that the U.S. will support for a two-state solution, calling for separate Israeli and Palestinian states with borders resembling those that existed before the 1967 war, which this territory includes the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, and parts of East Jerusalem. So, what is your perspective on the viability and effectiveness of the two-state solution in resolving this conflict?
Okay, thank you. Those who advocate for this, for me, I consider them a bit ignorant about the nature of Zionism.
Mm.
I explained during the first part of our discussion that the ideology of Zionism says that the whole of Palestine is to be controlled 100% by Jews. This is the idea of Zionism. Okay, so that is the reason why they are continuing to confiscate Palestinian lands in the West Bank, even until today.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as I said a couple of times already just now, that the state of Israel is illegal because it was formed through criminal acts of killing Palestinian and forcibly taking away their land. So, if you recognize the state of Israel, then you are recognizing
Zionism.
crimes. It was okay for these Zionists to kill the Palestinian and to take away their lands, to kick Palestinians out of their lands and seize their lands. If you by saying that Israel is a legitimate state, then you are saying these crimes are acceptable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you say to the Palestinians, you must recognize Israel, then you are saying to the Palestinians, you must accept that it was okay to kill your grandfathers, your fathers, your grandmothers. It was okay to burn your house and to take away the lands. It was okay. How can you accept Palestinians to agree to what you say, right? To ask them to accept all these killings and crimes against their forefathers. So I prefer to subscribe to the view that the Palestinians crimes have been committed against the Palestinian, and therefore Israel is an illegitimate state. It's not only me. I'm talking about even the Jewish historian scholars also say that they consider this, as I said, settler colonial project.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in the first place, recognition of the state of Israel, and then to live side by side with Palestine, is already wrong because you are accepting that Israel is a legitimate state. Secondly, as I said, Zionism says, according to the ideology of Zionism, the whole area of Palestine must be inhabited and under full control of Jews, and the Palestinians must be expelled from them. So this is what they are doing now, and they have implemented this immediately. In the case of West Bank, immediately after that, they started to establish hometowns, towns, basically. In the beginning, they call it outposts, and then they will expand it to become towns. Towns with swimming pools, with public swimming pools. It's not like a camp. We are talking about like a small town. It's a complete town.
Small town.
Yes, it's not small. It depends on where you come from. Those are towns.
Okay.
So these towns are expanding, and the Israelis have been building highways, spending billions on highway infrastructure, electricity, etc., to make sure that people can travel from these towns in peace, in safety, in security. They have been investing in this project, right? And encouraging other Israelis to move there by giving them subsidies. This is what the Israeli government is doing to encourage people to move over. Now, if you are doing this, it's very obvious that the Israelis have got no intention to allow Palestinians to stay in West Bank. Their intention is to take more land.
Mhm.
So the two-state, so-called two-state solution is just has long been dead. It's not viable from very beginning, right? Even now, the Israeli government under Netanyahu has made a public announcement. Our intention is to annex the land. The cabinet ministers openly stated that, even show a map that shows this is the map of Israel where there is no more West Bank. So why are you still talking about that? So what the international community should do instead is to recognize that there are crimes. Now that they have refused to acknowledge the crimes in 1948 when the Israeli state was established, the crime of ethnic cleansing, now they should, even now ethnic cleansing is taking place, they should recognize it. And this has been attested by human rights organizations like Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, right? And there is even an Israeli human rights organization called Beit Salam also said crimes of apartheid are taking place now, especially in the West Bank, especially. And also the blockade of Gaza is also a proof that you are treating Palestinians as subhumans. So what the international community should do is to accept that and to take proper actions, and also to implement what the United Nations themselves also said way back in 1948, that all the refugees have got the right to return back to their land. So they say that, the United Nations say that, even though they allowed the illegitimate state of Israel to be formed, but they also say that Palestinians should be able to go back to where they come from. So they should implement that. Make sure that the refugees are able to come back to their homeland. Number two is to end all kind of occupation of Palestine in the West Bank, and also to end the blockade of Gaza, and make sure that the Palestinians who are still living, there are some Palestinians, about 2 million, who are staying in what's called Israel now, historic Palestine, who didn't leave in 1948. They were still there, but many of them they don't have the same rights as the Israelis. Some people may argue with that, but I can point out one very glaring evidence that the Palestinians who are living in historic Palestine do not have the same right as the Israelis. The Palestinian cannot marry other Palestinians in the West Bank. If you are in the historic Palestine, in Israel now, Israeli Palestinians are not allowed to get married to West Bank Palestinians. If they get married to West Bank Palestinians, they have to move there. They cannot they cannot bring their wife from West Bank to Israel. They cannot marry Palestinian in Gaza. Okay, so they are not allowed. But Jewish Israelis, they can marry anybody, bring them from any country to Israel. So that shows that there are different rules for Jews and different rules for Palestinians. So they must be given the same right as well. Then we can talk about that justice. Then, right? So when all these countries talk about the two-state solution, basically, from my angle, is that they are just going through the motion in order to placate people, to basically deceive people, because they know that at the same time, while we are talking about this, the Israelis are confiscating Palestinian lands. So it's like a cover. It's like giving time for Israel to take more lands, to give opportunity for Israel to take more lands, and to make sure that it becomes completely their plan of expelling Palestinians are completely successful.
Mhm.
So by talking about this, you are actually giving time and space for the Israelis to commit more apartheid crimes of apartheid against the Palestinians. So we should stop talking about the two-state solution
Mhm.
and start talking about the crimes of apartheid going on in Palestine, including in what is called Israel now, and especially in the West Bank, and then call the international community to treat Israel the way they treated South Africa before. South Africa was boycotted by the international community because of their policies of apartheid towards the blacks.
Mhm.
So that's what happened. And why don't they do the same thing to Israel? Because what Israel is doing is the same or even worse. And what they are doing to the Palestinians uh, are the same or even worse. According to some South Africans, they said, we have seen apartheid in South Africa. We have seen what is apartheid in Palestine. What is happening in Palestine is worse, according to some South African activists.
Mhm.
So this, as I repeat again, stop talking about two-state solution.
Mhm.
Start talking about crimes of apartheid, which are ongoing now in Palestine.
And Doctor, when you mentioned about the what international community should be doing is to first recognize the crimes and also take action for it. And actually, during the time of this recording, Saudi Arabia recently urgent call for a ministerial meeting of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation (OIC) to address the escalating situation in Gaza. The OIC reiterated its condemnation of the Israeli military and its aggression against Gaza, holding Israel responsible for this regarding international resolutions. So, Prof, in your view, what role do organizations like the Arab League and OIC play in resolving the conflict? And do you think that these interventions by Arab or even Islamic countries have a significant impact on this?
Firstly, is we are extremely disappointed with the OIC and many Muslim countries for their stance towards the Palestinians all this while.
Mm.
Okay, they have not been doing enough. I would say they have not been doing enough. Minimum, as I said, the minimum they should do is to highlight the crimes of apartheid. Right, in the first place, they shouldn't have some of them like Egypt, Jordan, for example. They recognize Israel. They have embassies now. Israel got embassies in Egypt as well
Mhm.
as in Jordan, right?
Mhm.
So that is wrong because that is a betrayal of the fight for justice of Palestinians. As I said, even the Jewish scholars themselves said Israel is a settler colonial project
Mhm.
formed through ethnic cleansing and other crimes. So that that nobody should have, no country should have recognized Israel, especially Arab Muslim countries, right? But they did. So that was wrong. So OIC should recognize that Israel is illegitimate. And if you ask me, I would call on Egypt and Jordan to end any diplomatic relation with Israel. Turkey, for example, the same thing. They should. And then call the international community to completely isolate Israel, boycott Israel until Israel fulfill the three demands which were proposed by the global BDS movement,
Mhm.
boycott, divestment, and sanction movement, which is, I repeat again, and number one is to allow all Palestinian refugees to go back to their homeland, to the place where they come from, which is their right under international law, passed by Resolution 194 of the United Nations in 1948, all the way back in 1948, and then to end the occupation of the West Bank, get all the settlers out, completely give it to the Palestinian, and the blockade of Gaza, and also give equal rights to all Palestinians who are living in historic Palestine now. So that should be the call of all the Muslim countries. Actually, it should be the call of the whole international community. That's what they should do. Isolate Israel until Israel fulfill these three demands. But especially this initiative should be the initiative of Muslim countries, right?
Mm-hmm.
And put pressure on other countries to
To show
boycott Israel, isolate Israel
Mhm.
completely. This is the way ahead. Not what the OIC is doing now is not enough.
Just giving statement.
It's simply giving more cover, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you talk about the two-state solution, you are just giving more opportunity for Israel to commit more crimes toward the Palestinians.
And before this, another major conflict is the conflict between Russia and also Ukraine. So, could you provide insights into how the Western countries initially responded to the conflicts in Ukraine, and it's different with the conflicts in Palestine? Were there any differences in the immediate actions?
Oh, of course, we can obviously see the blatant hypocrisy
Mm-hmm.
of the West, right? When Russia invaded Ukraine, they were up in arms, and then they say this is not acceptable, and they started to provide arms to the Ukraine
Mm-hmm.
because of invasion by uh, Russia. But when it comes to the Palestinians, well, in the first place, as I said, when the settler colonial project started,
Mm.
the West, not only they were the one who supported the project in the first place, as I said, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then now, where in 1967, when Israel invaded the West Bank and continues to confiscate Palestinian land, they are completely quiet, nothing to say. When Palestinians say, okay, let's boycott, call the world to boycott Israel because of the crimes of apartheid committed against the Palestinian people, including sport boycott, for example,
Mm-hmm.
they say, no, 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 we don't mix sport with politics. But when Russia invaded Ukraine, they say Russian tennis players or athletes are not allowed to participate in sporting
Sporting
events.
events. Uh-huh.
That's immediately sports and politics are merged. So you can see the blatant
The
hypocrisy, right?
bias.
The bias, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it so? Because Ukraine is for them, for the West, is their project. Yeah? They want to make sure that Western Europe power extend all the way to into Russia.
Mm-hmm.
So it's their in their interest that Ukraine is um, protected and remain independent
From Russia.
from Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and at the same time, it's their interest to see that Israel continues to expand and take away Palestine. It's their interest to make sure that the Arabs, the Palestinian, are completely deprived, dispossessed of their own land. So
Mm-hmm.
that's their project. So we cannot expect anything from the West. The
Mm-hmm.
West is not only hypocritical, right? They are
Mm-hmm.
also complicit in the crimes of committed by Israel. So, as I said, not
Uh-huh.
only hypocritical but complicit. They are behind uh, the
Yeah.
project of dispossessing Palestinians of their homeland.
And Prof, if let's go to the national level, we as Malaysians, could you suggest actions or initiatives that we could do, and it will be the most effective in showing support for Palestine?
Okay, I think the most important thing is to educate the Malaysian public about the situation in Palestine, especially the historical dimension.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't understand the history of what's happening in Palestine, then you will have a very warped view, a very confused view of. That's why some Malaysians say that agree, to say that Hamas is a terrorist organization because they consume news provided by the Western media,
Mm-hmm.
so they see the Hamas movement as a terrorist organization, extremists, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in actuality, the Hamas are freedom fighters, people who are trying to gain back their rights, to liberate their homeland. So if you don't understand the history of it, you think that Hamas are the troublemakers, right? and Israel is a legitimate state and has got the right to defend itself against people who attack. Because you didn't know that actually the Palestinians who attacked in the first place, they were victims in the first place from invaded. The countries were invaded by European colonialists, settler colonialists. So it's important for us to educate the Malaysian public. So those who are listening to this show should disseminate this understanding to their friends, right? Get articles from internet which give a proper view, especially historical view. The historical view is actually also provided by Jewish groups who are anti-Israel, who really understand the history. Look up articles written by experts on the Middle East who give the proper account of what happened in the Middle East and share with other people. Once people understand this, right, then they will have a different view. I'll give you an example. When I was involved in the project of Boat to Gaza, there was a boat organized by activists from Europe. They organized a boat where they will send supplies to Gaza, which is under blockade, as you know. They wanted to highlight to the Europeans that Gaza is being illegally blockaded and people are suffering over there. And this is wrong under international law. So many Europeans don't really know about this. So some Europeans embark on this project. They bought a boat and then they call people inside there, put supplies and then send over to Gaza. And I was involved during the early stages. I was in the boat between Copenhagen to Germany. When I was in Copenhagen, before we embarked, our boat was actually guarded at night. I was sleeping in there. In the morning, we were sailing off. And when I woke up, and I saw two people, like a couple, like husband and wife, sitting on a bench, looking at us, like a security guard, basically, right? So after I did my prayers, I went to talk to them. I said, "Who are you?" Because I was a bit puzzled and also a bit worried. Who are you? He said, "We are actually making sure that you people are not disturbed. You are not harmed." Oh, I see. Like security guards, yeah. We make sure nobody comes, but of course we cannot guarantee that there are no frogmen who will attack the boat from beneath. That is beyond our control. But we make sure nobody on the ground will attack the boat. So I said, "Are you from Denmark?" Yeah, and then the lady said, "He is. I am not from Denmark. I am from Israel." She said. "Oh, you are from Israel?" "Yes, I am Israeli Jew." "So why are you suddenly supporting this project, anti-Israel project, highlighting the suffering of the Gazan people?" He said, "Because I did my research on this issue of Palestine. I was in the Israeli military," he said. She was a military officer, and her job at that time, when she was in the Israeli military, was to go to schools and explain the Zionist propaganda to school children. But her conscience, she did some more research and she said, "I found that actually all these were lies. I knew that these are all wrong, that the Palestinians are the victims." So I asked her, "How long did it take you to realize that?" "Oh, quite a long time, because I was involved in the propaganda, but eventually I realized that the truth is that the Palestinians are victims, and what is happening in Palestine is basically unacceptable. And this is the minimum I can do, is to contribute, to support all these activists against Israel, and to make sure that you guys are okay." So once people understand, right, they will sympathize with the Palestinians. Even Israeli Jew who was in the Israeli military, there are many of them actually now who are beginning to see it. And that's what we should do. Unfortunately, many Malaysians are not aware of this issue. And as I said, Because of that, they think that Palestinians are troublemakers, right? And some of them go to Palestine to visit Al-Aqsa Mosque, and they don't give a damn about what's happening to Palestine. They only care about the mosque. They don't
Going
care
to
about
the
the
mosque itself.
Palestinians. They don't care about the Palestinians. This is wrong. The focus should be to liberate the mosque, because the mosque, Masjid Al-Aqsa, is under Israeli control. Israeli decide who can go to the mosque and who cannot go. And they decided, for example, the Palestinian young youth cannot go to the mosque. And they decided Malaysians can go to the mosque. So can you imagine how the Palestinians feel? Foreigners come over and go to the masjid,
But they
whereas
themselves
they
cannot.
themselves are not allowed, because it's actually controlled by the Israelis. But the Malaysian couldn't care less about that, right? It's a very dangerous attitude, very unfair attitude, the wrong attitude. And to make it worse is that some of these people, they come back and they say it's quite a safe place. Actually, the situation is you are uh, injustice going on, colonization is going on at that place. And can you imagine if a Palestinian decide to carry out an operation to which is their right to kill the soldiers who are guarding the Israeli soldiers who are guarding the mosque? You can imagine what's going to happen is that they will not be allowed. There will be some commotion or whatever emergency, and then the Israelis will probably cordon off the mosque, so nobody can go to the mosque. I can imagine those people who pay so much money to go to visit the mosque. Who do you think they will be angry at? The soldiers or the Palestinians who create the situation, who kill the Israeli soldiers? I can expect they will be upset at the Palestinian. They will say that I couldn't go to the mosque. I paid so much money and I couldn't go to pray at the Masjid Al-Aqsa. Why? Because some Palestinian troublemakers create some trouble. They will blame the Palestinians. This is likely going to be the case, and that is why we have to educate the Malaysians to understand the situation over there in Palestine. Make sure they understand the historical aspect of it. Make sure they understand and they are aware of what's happening in Palestine, in the West Bank, in Baitul Maqdis, how the Israelis are taking over Judaization. They call it policy of Judaization. Make sure they eliminate any Palestinian identity in the city of Jerusalem. This is a project of the Israelis, but many Malaysians are not aware of it. Right? So we have to educate them, and then inshallah, if once they are educated, then they will act accordingly, and inshallah they can contribute to the cause of justice for Palestine and to liberate Palestine one day, and then everybody can then go to Masjid Aqsa and pray in peace and security.
Inshallah.
Thank you. Yeah.
And as we conclude this interview, is there any final message or key takeaway that you would like to share with our audience regarding the Israel-Palestine issue and the ongoing conflicts in the region?
Yeah. Well, I will repeat again what I said just now. The key thing is do research on the issue of Palestine. Go deeper. Don't simply rely on TikToks and make sure you really understand. Once we understand the issue, that it is actually a settler colonial project. It's a colonized Palestine is a colonized land by European colonizers, and that there are crimes of apartheid going on in Palestine committed by the Zionists, ongoing until today. It is our responsibility to do something about it. Minimum we can do is actually to boycott Israel and to boycott, in the case of our country, no normalization with Israel. And for us as citizens, we must make sure that our Malaysian government policy remains the same, will not change. And also we can also participate in the boycott of companies that are complicit in the crimes committed by Israel toward the Palestinians. That's what we can do.
And
Inshallah, yeah.
Inshallah. And with that being said, Doctor, thank you for your valuable insights on the situation. And also, again, thank you for our dear listeners for tuning in. We hope that, again, this discussion will prove beneficial to those who have been following us either through Radio or even through our Facebook. And once more, thank you, Prof, for joining us in the studio. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
And dear listeners, if you miss any part of the show, you can watch it again through our Facebook page, IKIM FM. And for that, stay tuned and keep listening to IKIM FM